All right, I have 7 o'clock. We will call the town board meeting for September 6, 2023 to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Patrick?
Mr. Chair, no additions or deletions from staff this evening.
Board have anything?
I do not.
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 3 is approval of payment of the bills. Steve, you sign off.
I signed off, move to approve payment of the bills.
Second. Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 4 is approval of the minutes from August 21st. Do you have any corrections?
I did not see any. Move to approve the minutes of the August 21st meeting.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, item 5 is consent agenda item. It looks like we have about 8 of these. Does the board wish to pull any of these?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, before we move forward with that, if you have not signed in, there's an attendance sheet in the back. Please make sure you do so we know who was here tonight.
And also, our speaker system is down, so we'll try to speak up.
As loud as we can. As far as the consent agenda, I move to pull items D and E. They kind of relate to each other, just for general discussion.
I would also like to pull item A, the parking agreement for Township Day.
All right, so I need a motion to approve the rest of the consent.
I will move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, 5A, this is Township Day parking agreement. Patrick, do you understand where we're having some?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I believe legal had a position on this one.
My recommendation would be this is, in terms of Spearman Group LLC, that's one we're missing. You could approve the form for Spearman Group LLC, subject to their execution of the exact same form that we use for Stellan and, there's another one, for Stellan. So just basically approve the form, authorize the board chair and town clerk to execute the Spearman agreement as soon as they return the agreement executed in the same form as provided them.
And if it's not received, I assume we don't use it.
We can't use it.
Can't use it.
All right, and this is just concerning agreements we have with neighboring businesses at the township. We have Township Days coming up September 16th.
Right, yes.
They're allowing us to park in their parking lots, but we need that agreement signed before we allow that, so. All right, is that okay with the board?
Yes.
So I will move to approve item 5A, Township Day parking agreement, subject to receiving the form from Spearman Group prior to the actual event.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Staff will follow up. Thanks.
All right. Aye.
Aye.
All right, then item 5D is truck number 42 replacement.
Mr. Chair, the reason I asked to have that discussed for just a brief moment, we have discussed the replacement of truck number 42 in the past, but we are looking to purchase a brand-new vehicle, a Kenworth jetback truck, amount of $595,000. And I just, going along with what we have done in the past, we've not really put those through on a consent agenda item, which makes it look like we haven't spent any time looking at it. We have spent quite a bit of time looking at it, but I just want, because we have a full house tonight, to make sure everybody's aware that we do take spending $500,000+ seriously. So.
Plus two, part of this was under our CIP, which was budgeted for, and it's obviously coming in under budget. And the reason I think we moved it up is because we're getting a better deal this fall than if we were to wait till next year. Correct, Patrick?
Yes, correct.
I don't know the exact numbers, but every time we can save any amount of money on these vehicles, it's a plus for the township. Got anything else? No.
And Mr. Chair, E kind of goes along with it. If we replace the truck, we have to dispose of the truck, so I just put those two together. There's not a lot to discuss other than using the contract, so.
And that brings down the total amount of spending that we're putting in this truck because we get a trade-in allowance, or a sale allowance. All right, so we should probably handle these individually, though. So I need a motion to approve consent agenda item D.
So I'll move to approve consent item 5D, truck 42 replacement.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And I will move approval for item 5E, the equipment disposal of the existing truck, which will be replaced by the new truck.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that takes care of consent. Item 6 is old business. This is 1620 Hammond Road. It's an update on a 3-dog license. Patrick, you gonna cover this?
Did you want to do this one, Evan, or me?
I haven't been a part of
Okay.
this, so I'd like you to.
This is just following up on a request for a 3-dog license. If you'll look at your staff memo regarding this request, we did run this by Ramsey County Animal Control. They have noted that there have been no reports or issues with that address concerning any of the dogs, and staff is recommending approval of this request.
Is there any discussion of the 4th dog? I believe it was the son's dog. He was gonna move out.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened? Is this gonna be something we need to review again?
I think,
Follow up on this?
I think originally we did, Mr. Attorney, when we had this hearing originally, we did request that it be reviewed after a year, or maybe it was 2 years, I can't remember.
I think it was a year,
Okay,
actually.
reviewable after 12 months, Mr. Chair.
Well, according to the notes, it says that it thought 3 months was long enough because they fall into the fall and summer will have passed with the dogs outside more, and the summer housing markets for the son may be available to find a home. I still think we need to have, it's violation of our 3-dog license to have 4 dogs. I think we have to have a little more information than it's not available.
What are you looking for?
I want to know, well, I really want to know what efforts are being made to reduce it to our 3-dog limit. That's with exception.
And I would suspect what you're saying is you want this to be, you want another public hearing is what it comes down to.
Is that what you're looking for?
Well, otherwise, we're waiting a year, yes, because if we wait a year, and we're allowing 4 dogs
Okay.
on a more than a interim basis.
Is the applicant here? Not seeing a
I
hand.
haven't seen her. You can table this for further discussion if you'd like. We have another meeting on the 18th.
Well, I guess I'd like to table it then, because I would really like a commitment to know what the plan is to reduce 4 dogs down to 3 dogs, which is by special permit application. 4 is over our special
And
permit.
Patrick, you're gonna have to reach out to the applicant to make sure that they're available for the meeting.
Sure.
I mean, so we can, pardon me? Yeah, just approach the podium, give your name and address.
My name's Clark Hubener, Huebener, and I live at 1641 Garden Lane. And I was here with my wife 3 years ago at the most, and we had this issue with dogs. That's why I'm not understanding this 3 and 4. It doesn't pertain to me now, but
Sure.
we had a neighbor that had 4 dogs. And at that time, we came to the township here, and they said the limit was in the rules was 3 dogs. And one of the gentlemen got up and he says, "You can't have 4, it says 3. So I don't know where this is coming, where it's changed. I just wanted to.
Sure. I'll speak to, for just, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair. The problem in this particular, first off, there was another situation with 4 dogs. A dog was in the process of dying. I'm not sure if that's the same one.
That's the one.
And that dog did pass, they went down to the 3, and it was very temporary. This had already occurred, that there were 4 dogs at the house because the son was looking to purchase the property and had moved in there and had a dog. So was it always there, going to be there temporarily? We didn't know. The issue was to issue from a 2-dog to a 3-dog license. Then we found out there's a 4th dog, but it's temporary.
Yeah.
And that is the rub that I have, is I want to know what temporary means. If we pass it tonight for a 1-year 3-dog license, well, then the issue of the 4th dog gets delayed for a year, and I'm not willing to accept that yet.
Right. Actually, it was 5 dogs they had, and 1 died, and then they were at 4, so.
Might have my numbers wrong. But the issue is exactly that. Our permitting is 2 dogs, 3 with a special permit,
Okay.
and 4 is way outside there.
I was a little confused, that's why I wanted to speak. Okay.
Understood.
Chad, if we're going to table this for review and have the applicant be present at the next meeting, do we have to go through any kind of a reposting of it, or is it just continued as from the last hearing that we had?
It would just be a continuation.
Okay. Staff will reach out to the resident, make sure that they are here. We'll put this on the agenda for the 18th.
So we need a formal motion to continue till next meeting?
I'll move to continue this item till the next official town board meeting.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, moving on. Item 7A, this is a public hearing for ordinance number 16 amendment. I need a motion to waive the reading.
I'll move to waive the reading that was properly published in the newspaper.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Then I need a motion to open up the public hearing.
I'll move to open up the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, who's handling, Patrick or Evan, you doing this?
I can do it. Per directive from the board, as we hack our way through the legal sale of marijuana within the township, one of the things that the board was interested in adding to ordinance language was the prohibition of smoking within publicly owned or operated land or facilities. This would add that prohibition to parks, sidewalks, that kind of stuff, I believe is what we were at.
Yes, that's what we did.
Okay.
Actually, it covers any public space owned by the, owned or maintained by the township.
Okay. And we were looking just to put that in there. As many other municipalities around us here in Ramsey County have done on the front end of evaluating the impact of cannabis within those municipalities in our township. With that, I present that to you for discussion.
Steve?
Well, as we've discussed numerous times, with the introduction of the cannabis or cannabis-related products, we found that it needs to be more specific as to what the intended purpose or place that people are allowed to do that. We also found that just general smoking was not, I don't think that was clearly addressed enough, and so.
It wasn't in there at all.
In there at all. So my view is that we need to amend this so that there's no confusion, that it is the intent that our township should be more safe as far as smoking. Our citizens should be safe from having to be around those products, whether it's smoking or cannabis, particularly our children. I don't think it's good for having our children in the playground area of our township park, as an example, the big park. They have to have people smoking around there. It's secondhand, and I just don't think we need it. And so that was the whole purpose of this, adding this to the amendment, not to dissuade from people purchasing that meth or products, but just where it is used. So,
And that is pretty standard language across many of the cities here in Ramsey County, so.
yes, the city of St. Paul is also addressing it tonight at their board meeting, the same issue.
This also follows Ramsey County parks too, so we're trying to be consistent because we have parks in the township that are Ramsey County. Scott, did your liaison to public safety, did David review this?
No.
So you got any questions or comments on it?
No.
Thanks.
All right, now this is a public hearing. If there's no other questions of the board, I would look for a motion up for public comment.
I'll move to open it up for public comment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So if anyone here wishes to speak on this, you have to go to the podium, state your name and address. Hearing none, going once, going twice. All right, motion to close for public comment.
I'll move to close the public portion of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, board.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board here?
Well, I'll move on behalf of the the ordinance number 16 amendment, considering amending the section 3 and 4 to add the language to prohibit smoking.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, next one is ordinance number 30 and 35 amendment. This is to consider amending the ordinance for removing variance board requirements.
Yep.
Again, this is a public, open hearing, so I need a motion to waive the reading.
I'll move to waive the reading that was properly published and notice given.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And I need a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Patrick?
Okay, I'll just give a quick one, and I'll hand it off to Evan for his perspective as well as Chad's. Upon review of our processes within our administrative offices during some staff turnovers due to retirements, Evan advised us that it might be more efficient if we were to eliminate the variance board requirement when residents or businesses approach the township looking for variances on improving building or maintaining their current structures. And we'd like to find other ways to make things more efficient, and I think that this one makes a lot of sense. So, Evan, you want to add your perspective?
Yeah, I think Pat summed it up pretty well here. Essentially, we're trying to make sure our ordinances are working to the best of their abilities. We want to make things as clear and efficient as possible. The variance board added a third step to an already kind of cumbersome process, and so by removing that step, you would have two steps when you request a variance. It would go through what's called the planning commission. They would make their recommendation, and then you at the town board level would ultimately have that ability to either approve or deny said variance. And so essentially by removing that first variance board step, you're kind of saving some time spent on the applicant side. You're also saving some time on staff side as well to make sure those applications do go smoothly. We do have 60 days to review variance requests, and so by eliminating that variance board meeting, you do make sure that you're within that 60-day time period.
All right, Scott?
I think it makes total sense. I like the idea of removing a step.
Everybody loves redundancy in government.
That's the way it operates.
Chad, we remain in legal compliance by just
Yes.
maintaining a planning commission review and.
Yeah, because the important thing to remember is this. This amendment still requires a public hearing. This won't be done on a consent agenda. There will be a public hearing, so that step is always there. So anyone who wants to speak to either opposing or supporting a variance will have the right to do so. But instead of doing 3 steps, we're now down to 2 steps, which is a lot. And plus, Evan mentioned the 60-day statute. That's important to understand because in the Minnesota statute, when a variance, which is a zoning issue, is submitted to the township, the town has to either approve or turn it down within 60 days unless they grant themselves a 30-day extension. But there's this time clock running, and the less time you spend going through hoops, the more time the planning commission, the town board have to consider things, so you're not rushing it at the end. So there's a more chance to think things through, which is important with variances, especially with variances. They need to be thought about before they're considered. So this is a good idea.
Steve?
Yeah, all I was going to add is it mentioned staff time, and it's awkward because the current makeup, and it has been the makeup of the variance board, is staff people who also are kind of a dual role. You'll have your building inspector who sat on the variance board because he has that aspect of business knowledge that he's supposed to talk about, reliance, but he's also he's acting as a variance board member, making it should or should not, but he's also got his staff role that he has to fulfill for the township. So this just makes it a little cleaner. He now can work as a staff liaison to a planning commission hearing to discuss the same topic, but in that staff capacity versus a variance board capacity. So it makes perfect sense to move away. So
Yeah, and the only thing that concerned me is we get a lot of variance requests, and some of them are reasonable, some of them are just because they want it. Everybody wants something. And years ago, variances were hardships, and they're not anymore, because if you have reasonable use of your property, we're not going to let you put up a monster building when you've already got a building. Just because you want a bigger one doesn't mean you get one. So I was concerned when we decided to combine these, as long as our building inspector follows with the planning commission, because he's in the field and he sees all these things, and he's familiar with variances, where planning commission members, sometimes they need a little refresher when these come up. So I don't have a problem getting rid of one board, because it also frees up Mike's time, but I also want to see him go to the planning commission with Evan, so these variances are still scrutinized with the planning commission. And like I said, it does speed that up, so we're not making this cumbersome for applicants. So you're not waiting 30 days to a meeting, 30 days to a meeting, and all of a sudden your 60 days is up before we even see it, so. All right, board, have any other questions? I need a motion to open this up for public comment.
I'll move to open it up for public comment.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Again, another hot topic. Anybody want to talk about it? I think I know why you're all here, so. All right, since no one's talking, I need a motion to close the public portion.
I'll move to close the public portion of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, do I have a motion on this?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to amend the section. Oh, a little person back there objecting already? Oh.
I
guess
need a
now-
name and an address.
Name and address if you're going to object back there. All right, I'll make a motion to amend the sections 2.2 of ordinance 30 and section 9-6.3 of the ordinance 35 to remove the variance board requirement.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, board.
All right, moving on. Item 7C, this is ordinance number 35 amendment. This is concerning special home occupation. Again, it's a public hearing, so I need a motion to waive the reading.
I'll move to waive the reading that was properly published.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Then I need a motion to open up the public hearing.
I'll move to open up the public hearing.
Second.
And second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, Evan, you gonna take this one?
Certainly, Chair. This request is looking to amend some of the requirements of our zoning ordinance, in particular, special home occupations. The applicant is looking to allow either a walk-in freezer or a walk-in fridge in conjunction with a special home occupation use. Your zoning ordinance, for reference, dictates what type of uses you can have in certain areas of the township. Residential areas are allowed what's called home occupation, so basically any home-based business with certain conditions. Home occupations are further split into just a typical permitted home occupation, and then a stricter special home occupation, so anything a little bit more business-heavy, intensive type of use that would be home-based would be a special home occupation. Going through our records, we only have 3 active permits for special home occupations. Our applicant is one of those. I'm not sure if the other 2 are active, so we may only have actually 1 ongoing special home occupation, but just for the record, there's not too many special home occupations, and there's probably a smattering of the permitted home occupations currently in the township. Section 711 is where home occupations are housed at, and it's in particular any occupation that results in a product or service which is clearly secondary to the principal residential use. So obviously you cannot run a restaurant, a bar, an industrial shop. You wouldn't be able to run that out of a house, but something kind of secondary to that residential use would be a home occupation. Currently, our applicant does have a special home occupation of a bakery use operating out of his garage. Since it is in the garage, that's what triggered that special home occupation threshold. The current text allows it to be either in the house or an accessory structure. Our applicant today would like to amend that ordinance to allow, in addition to those, either a walk-in fridge or freezer. The applicant did get a special home occupation permit back in 2017. It was renewed in 2022. They do have the walk-in freezer already on the site, so they're looking to amend the ordinance in hopes to have that remain on the site for the business. Just a little overview of zoning ordinance amendments. It is a legislative action, so you as the town board get to make a decision based on relation into health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the township. Some of the things you may want to consider is your comprehensive plan, which obviously guides land use and development throughout the township. You may want to think of some of your other existing zoning districts. Special home occupations are allowed in residential zones. What would be the impact of allowing that in that type of area? You may want to think about the purpose of special home occupations. Does this keep in line with what's already in your ordinance? Some other things to keep in mind as well what would be some of the other pros and cons of allowing this type of item in a yard, say as a backyard for a special home occupation use such as a bakery. The current standards proposed by the applicant would be that any freezer or fridge would have to follow the setbacks, the size, and the height requirements of an accessory structure. So you wouldn't be seeing this in the front yard. You wouldn't be seeing this a foot off the property line. You would have to follow basically the same requirements as any typical garage or shed that you'd find on a common residential property. Looking beyond the township, home occupations kind of vary from municipality to municipality. Some communities are very strict in what they allow for home occupations. Some are kind of loose in what they allow. There's a variety of different permit requirements and processes that you can follow as well. So there is no gold standard or perfect way to go about doing this. Each community has the ability to kind of craft the ordinance how they see fit. This was reviewed at the Planning Commission meeting last month. They discussed this item at length. They did discuss some of the pros and cons of allowing such an item on a property for a special home occupation. In particular, the commission took concern with security of allowing such an item on a site. They ultimately recommended approval of the proposed text with the caveat that if a walk-in freezer or fridge was used for a special home occupation, that it would have to be locked up during non-business hours to kind of alleviate any issues with break-ins or what have you. Here at the board level, you do have 3 options tonight. You can approve the recommended or the requested amendment with or without changes to the text. You can deny the amendment with findings for denial. You could table to a future meeting if you want to further discuss or study the issue, and that would be your options tonight. Is there any other questions before we keep going?
You said the freezer is currently on site.
Correct.
Is it operational?
He had applied for building permits. I don't know off the top of my head if those have been approved yet.
All right, and since it is, is it currently adhering to the setback size and height requirements of accessory structure?
Yes.
Okay, those are my questions.
Steve?
At the planning commission, the question I had, is there an issue as it related to the Minnesota Department of Health, which as a commercial operating kitchen, he had to meet, and he assured the planning commission that they were comfortable with the arrangement with the walk-in freezer outside, not connected to the structure that he's using as a kitchen. So that was one of the questions that was asked there. I think the statement of consistency with a comprehensive plan is, it's the statement that's made is becoming more popular. I think home-based businesses are what a lot of people are trying to do. And it does meet those setback requirements and things. So outside of that, I don't really have any questions at this point in time.
Well, looking at this application, there's a fine line between secondary and primary use. This has gotten to be a full-fledged business, which, great, it's going great, you guys are doing great, and you want to expand. The problem is, this is almost a commercial entity in a residential area. So when I saw this, I had talked to Patrick about maybe we should be handling this, not a special home occupation, but a conditional use permit. Now, I don't know, Chad, did you have any thoughts on running it that way instead of
I
this?
do. It should not be a conditional use permit, but there's another type of permit called an interim use permit. The reason why you don't use a conditional use permit is once it's granted, that permit runs the land, it's basically permanent. An IUP, interim use permit, you can set a time frame, you can set conditions as to how long it's going to last. So no, I would not use a CUP. Instead, I would recommend using an interim use permit. The only problem is, there's no language in our ordinance right now that deals with interim use permits. So you'd have to actually craft approved language for an IUP before you could go that route. But no, do not use a conditional use permit.
I find that more intriguing than flat out yes or no, only because I think it does give us some options. And as part of the planning commission process was questions asked about intentions and hating to spend, he's going to tell us when he gets up to the podium. I'm sure if I'm wrong on the number, I think it's already got $60,000 in, around there in this freezer. And at some point, I hate to see someone spend that kind of money and then say, okay, time's up, you gotta move out, without having, this would give us some options to work with, it sounds like.
And actually, what interim use permits really, they're used for situations that are unique, where someone has a lot of money invested, or a lot of money or time invested in a certain use, property use, which really isn't consistent with the existing zoning code. Nonetheless, you want to allow the person to continue, but with certain conditions, so that, and also a deadline, because one thing with an IUP is, there has to be a set deadline by which the use has to cease.
Well, this is similar to what we did for Viking Auto. He was under conditional use permit, but we kept hearing, he's gonna find a better place, he's gonna move. Well, eventually that happened. That's why I was thinking, but that won't work in this situation?
Well, no, the problem with the conditional use permit is, once it's granted, it's permanent
Okay.
The property.
to the property. Yes, I understand, a conditional use permit runs with the property, but it is permanent, as long, it will run to.
So, as an example, Chad, can you set revenue as an interim? Because, the reason I'm asking is
Yeah.
because the applicant told the planning commission, correct me if I'm wrong, that he has not turned any money into profit other than reinvesting at this, and at some point hopes to make a profit, and this freezer is a methodology to get to that point. So if you're putting some contingencies on it, it has to be based on more than just time in this particular case, because he's got a big dollar investment and hasn't turned anything. I don't know how that works.
But again, you can't forget the fact that this is after the fact.
It is after the fact.
We're asking for permission, now we're begging for forgiveness. But the only reason I'm concerned about amending our ordinance for a conditional use permit is walk-in freezer. Now it's a paint booth. Now it's a kiln. Now it's a greenhouse. So this conditional use permit, when it gets so big, which great for you, it has, when it starts leaving the premises and the garage, where do we draw the line? We got to stop this, so.
Your amendment right now would draw the line of where you're allowed to go to. And so, say you were to amend your ordinance to allow a walk-in fridge or freezer on the site, that would be the limit of what you could do. And so anything beyond that would, again, you have to amend your ordinance, or the
That's why-
board would have to.
That's why I'm not
allow
comfortable with
this.
amending it once, because, like I said, you could have a litany of guys coming down the road going, now I want to amend the ordinance for this one.
Right, but every
That's
time
true.
it comes before the board, you have
Right.
that chance to approve or deny, so.
It's tougher and tougher to say no.
Well, Mr. Chair, you're right, and that's what can happen. But, at least in this case, it is customized to one specific situation, or one specific set of facts.
Yeah.
and Uses, so you're not opening the gate to anything else, but you are opening the gate to someone coming and saying, well, as you pointed out, well, what about a paint booth? Yeah. Or what about a kiln, something like that, yeah, you're opening that up. And I'm gonna be honest, even with an interim use permit, you're still gonna have the same problem, because the idea of an interim use permit is to let a certain use that really doesn't fit the zoning code continue until such, and gives the landowner some time to recoup costs and continue. It's very personalized.
But from a practical standpoint, in this scenario, there's only probably 2 that have the special home occupancy permit. It's pretty unique as it sits. So there are not a lot of people fitting what you're talking about, but it's there. But the carved out size, setback, and height requirements, again, keeps it somewhat limited as to potential obstacles for others. I mean, they have to, if this passes this way, they have to stay within that anyway, correct?
And actually, following up on your point,
Yeah.
it's not so much, it's actually the issuance of the special business use permit to begin with. That, that's really, that's your, that's where that's when you're acting as gatekeepers.
Yeah.
So.
So you'd have to get your special home occupation first.
Exactly.
And then if you wanted let's say, amend your ordinance to allow a freezer by IUP, then you'd have to get that additional permit, so.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
understand there's a lot of fear and, apprehension to this, but, as Steve noted, there's not really any active, special home occupation permits.
Well, the only problem is that
Apart from
we have a
bans.
lot of them in the township, they just don't apply for permits.
Right.
You see them up and down the road. Guys are working on lawnmowers and selling boats and log
You know what?
splitting and so.
But that's
You're
another
correct.
issue altogether. That's an issue of enforcement.
I know.
So, that's shame on those that don't follow our rules, and we haven't done anything about it if we haven't found them. So, noted.
Yes. But again, as Evan pointed out, is a special business permit, you're the gatekeeper. You can't amend an ordinance to allow for a certain use if the use isn't allowed to begin with.
Yeah.
All right, Scott, you got anything else?
No.
Steve?
I'll wait till we hear a little bit more.
All right, I need a motion to open up for public comment.
I'll move to open up public comment portion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I know, Ben, you want to start us off? Yes, sir. Just name and address for the record.
Ben Newman, 4522 Otter Lake Road. I just have like a one-page thing to go through, kind of went through it at the planning, but first, if I'm able to clarify, just because this proposal was newer to me, I didn't get to engage with the board yet in your idea. Could I clarify what you kind of saying? It sounded like, were you alluding to, like, I might not be in compliance with the current intent of the code? Is that what you're kind of alluding, or not so much, or?
Yeah, only because a special home occupation is, your business is secondary to your home.
And how is that defined, sir?
Your home occupation now is almost taking over your home.
I guess by square footage, or?
No, just by the volume of work that you're doing. You've got a great business, and kudos to you. The problem is, it is a business now, and it's sitting right in a residential area. That's where we struggle with this.
Sure, and I'm trying to do my best in 3 months of conversations with Evan about the wording in the zoning, because that's what's kind of stopping me. So I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding the zoning wording correctly, right? And that's why I want to see if there's anything in the current zoning that I am not following, or I just wanted to clarify. If it sounds like you sound like you were saying that I'm not really in the essence of what special home occupation permit is all about. But if according to the wording, I am
It
exactly.
was until you brought the freezer in.
Yeah, you were doing
Then
fine.
You tipped it.
Oh, okay, so I am, so if this were to pass, it is within the spirit, so we're back to just the freezer itself, not so much.
Yeah,
the business
that,
itself.
you moved outside the house, you moved outside the garage, now it's not anymore a special home occupation.
Okay, well, that, great, that fits with my amendment, so the amendment would fix
Okay.
that, so that would be, okay, I just want to clarify one a separate issue that was new to me that I hadn't prepared for.
No,
Okay,
no,
so
no,
you're
no.
saying, yes, currently, it's out of purpose because it's not an accessory structure.
I'll make one comment with you.
sir.
Had you had room in your attached garage, now kitchen, and that freezer was inside there, this
We wouldn't be here.
conversation
Yes,
would not be
yes,
here.
Mike said I could build an expansion 3 times the size, and I
Yeah.
could bakery and have it inside, and that would be totally fine.
Yeah, and that's where it changed when you.
Perfect, so if that's the issue, this would fix that, so, okay, cool. I just want to make sure it wasn't something else that I need to worry about. Okay, just have a page and a paragraph, so hopefully 2-3 minutes. Alrighty, so thanks for the summary, Evan, and working with me over the last few months, many calls and in-person meetings, and Mike I worked with well. I visited Chad a few times at his office, or once or twice. I want to take just a few minutes to expand a bit on my background and what this approval would mean for me and my family. I'm aware this amendment is not just for me. It would apply to any business owners and neighbors in the town. But I think it's important for you to see how much good can be done by allowing whole businesses and being a little freer, because there's definite good that can be done by those. And that should be weighed against any negatives that are perceived as well. But sometimes I mainly hear about the negatives, because that's what reigns in things. But I do want to make sure we highlight all the good, because that's hopefully how a decision is made, is between the pros and the cons. So I want to kind of highlight some of the good that it can do for families in the township. So I started my bakery 6 years ago as just a part-time hobby while I was a full-time martial arts instructor and an MMA fighter. A few years later, in 2020, my wife and I began the process to get licensed for foster care through Ramsey County, which meant that once we were approved, we could be given a baby with several hours' notice at any time. Since my wife and I both worked evenings at the time, my wife is a waitress at a French restaurant back here with the baby. Back there, farther back. That's probably my baby crying.
Glad you recognized her, Ben.
So that wouldn't work for fostering children with us both working nights. So I quit my job teaching and fighting, which I really enjoyed, to go full-time with the bakery to be in charge of my own hours. We were thankfully able to adopt a little girl this spring, and being able to be present at home with her throughout the week and to be involved in raising her rather than having her in childcare has been a blessing. The bakery is getting close to being profitable, but I still haven't kept a dollar from the bakery for myself since it opened 6 years ago. This freezer was the last big ticket item I needed to buy, and I spent the last of our savings we have left in the bakery on this freezer, $55,000, which is a lot of money for us. I'm on track to turn a small profit next year and finally keep a small salary for our family, so I think eventually all the time and worry and investment will pay off. Having this freezer allows me to keep one employee fully employed year-round, which is allowed by the code. Without it, I have so little room for storage that I can't store enough inventory for some of the bigger holidays like Thanksgiving. So during slow times of the year, I can't keep an employee busy. So this just evens out my production and helps me have a full-time employee. So in case there was a packet that was submitted, hopefully you gentlemen were able to see some pictures in there. Did you receive, I think there are 70 or 75, what's it called, petitions or signed petitions from residents? Were you able to review those, gentlemen?
I think we saw that at our last
Yeah, it was like the
exec
previous
meeting.
one. Cool, I just want to make sure you saw it. I think there were 75 signed people in support of actually a wider version of the amendment we were crafting at the time, and we narrowed it since then. But in those pictures, we have, this is what can be seen from the road, is that piece right there would be the freezer you guys probably saw driving by. This is what, I know sometimes it's hard to picture what is a walk-in freezer. It looks, it looks like a normal, it looks like a building, and it's got an AC unit on top. And then the door, and that's the back to my bakery. So this is what I see from my house. It's not what you can see from the front. Again, this is what we have in our backyard now. And this is on the insides. That's me and my little girl, but that's the inside of it. So we're just gonna have a few racks with pie storage. It's just for storage. So a few racks on there for pies. Just so you can kind of visualize what a walk-in freezer is, if you haven't worked in the food industry before. All right, halfway through. Cool. So the next thing I want to speak about was to clarify my line of thinking for this amendment and to address any concerns you might have about the proposal. So far I've been able to converse with Evan and Mike, the building inspector, and Patrick was in on some of the conversations, and then the town attorney as well, Chad. So they kind of helped me craft what they thought made sense or might make sense, and let me know that you guys make the final decision. So I've got their input, but I haven't gotten to converse with you and get any input from you yet, so this is my chance. And I just want to clarify for folks that in the current zoning for home occupations that I'm proposing to modify, it says, quote, "The home occupation may be conducted in the principal dwelling," which it is right now, "and one accessory building," which is a separate building, "or in the garage." So right now I'm in the current building, and the current zoning does allow for one separate building, and that, like they mentioned, has to follow the back, et cetera. So it could be up to 1,000 square feet, unless you had a really tiny lot, it wouldn't be. But in my lot, I could have a 1,000 square foot building according to the current code. My freezer is 189 square feet, so it's much smaller than what is currently allowed. So it just feels like mine falls into a small slot where the township viewed it as not technically an accessory building, although it is smaller than what's currently allowed. So I just want to clarify that it's almost like, feels like we're just fixing a glitch that hadn't been foreseen, and it's still along with the intent of what was written originally. So just to clarify, I guess I kind of said that, if I were to build a storage shed for the bakery, even with the exact same size, shape, and placement as where this is right now, if it were to be just a building air conditioned to 70 degrees for room temperature pie storage, Evan, just want to clarify, that would be allowed as an accessory structure, correct?
Correct.
Perfect. So I hope you would agree that having a structure of the exact same size, shape, and placement that is cooled to negative 10 degrees for storage instead of 70 degrees for storage would follow the intent of the current code, and we're just fixing a glitch that's blocking me right now. I think that a cold storage building clearly follows the same intent. So my proposal to explicitly allow a cold storage building would be a very simple solution to close the gap in the code. And last paragraph, hopefully I'm coming across as being respectful in my approach to this. I understand that the current board members and town employees did not write the original wording for these ordinances, and your job is just to react, adapt, change with the times. If, like you said, if home business become more popular and that's the will of the people, I'm sure your job is to just adapt it within boundaries that are set. So hopefully this would fall in that perspective. The last few weeks, I've gotten to work directly with Evan and Mike and receive their input on a successful amendment, but this is the first time I'm able to work with you guys, like I said before. Would now be a good time for me to ask if you have any concerns about how this tweak would affect the township that I could address for you?
Scott, questions, comments?
So I guess I'll ask it this way, and to address your last point, no, I think you are being very respectful and you're being very thoughtful, which is what I like. But to take off on what the chair had said earlier about transitioning from a home base to a full-time, and so that's what I think raised concerns, at least from my perspective, because let's say down the road, I don't know, 20 years, you decide to move, you're doing well, you move to Hawaii, I don't know.
Fantastic.
How are you going to sell that? Because to me, it looks like it's becoming more of a business operation than a home, and that's
I
what
still want to sell the house, you're saying? If I were-
correct. And I think also, like when I drive by periodically, I'll see your big balloon guy
On a Friday
with a
night or
chef.
Saturday, yep,
Okay.
yep.
So are you geared, once upon a time, I think I remember you saying that you were geared for online reservations and people show up and they pick up the pies and go. Are you changing that to more trying to attract the casual shopper to stop by, like I don't know, I'm just out running errands and I'm going to stop in here and see what's available for pie. So those were kind of my thoughts, and if you could
Yes.
throw out thoughts on
Sure,
those.
no, it's good. Yep. So I still have the same that I reviewed with you when I first got applied, that it's by appointment only throughout the week, and I do weekend pickup times. So the only time I put those out there, at the most, I'm assuming you've probably seen it, would be twice a month, because I've never done, I think, more than 2 weekend pickups in a month. And I'll do like a Friday 3 to 6 p.m. pickup, and then I'll do like a Saturday morning, usually 10 a.m. to like 1 p.m. pickup. And I'll put that out there, so if a passerby sees, well, I'm in there and I have some slices out, people can buy a slice. But those are my pickup windows that I just do 2 weekends a month. And that's my goal, is to stick with that. I mean, in theory, maybe I would add another weekend, but I like the idea of having 1 weekend off and then 1 weekend working. And then I pre-sale online. People just, hey, I want to order this pie and pick it up at this time. So that's what that was, if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else, Scott?
So 20 years from now, when you decide to move to Hawaii,
That's perfect. Yeah, ADD. Yeah, so no, I know that a lot of this would be sunk cost that will not be recovered if I move. And in reality, all we have is a finished garage. I would just tear out that wall, put the garage door back in, because no one wants, I mean, someone could want it, but if I had to move, I would talk to a realtor and say, hey, is this extra living space good? And they'd probably say, no, people want a garage. So I would just take that wall back out and put a garage door in, and now they have a tiled, heated, insulated garage. So it added a little value to our house. But yeah, I would not keep it as, I don't think that if I had to move.
and I guess you'd have to take the freezer out as well then.
Yes, and so that is why I did buy a more expensive freezer. Most of these walk-in ones, they come in like panels, and you put them together with a wrench, and it takes hours. Then you have to have the AC guy come out to redo it. You have to have the electrician come out to rewire it, and it's a whole big deal. And I figure there's maybe a 50-50 chance in the next 5 to 10 years that I move to a commercial spot. I don't know long-term if I can make enough money being here and stay within our, code and everything, or if I need to move. So this is a one-piece unit. They just set it down, and they pick it up and put it on a trailer and haul it. So I got this one specifically for the opportunity if I do decide to move or find a good deal on a building somewhere or a rental space. So, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just one quick point of clarification. You said you're entitled to an accessory structure, but,
sir.
and I think you agree that this is a piece of equipment. So it's not I don't want to be confused that this is a structure when it really is a.
Part of our, and
piece
maybe
of
Evan can
equipment.
help clarify, this was a part of our ongoing between trying to understand with Mike. At first, I thought he was saying he viewed it as a piece of equipment, and the more we talked about it, it sounded like he's saying it is a building. I thought that's what he was trying to say at the end, and that's why he reviewed it and looked at the specs. I guess I don't really care which way it's, this amendment would fix it, because it just says what it is. But I guess if it's viewed as a piece of equipment, then later on I could still have an accessory structure if I wanted. I guess, is that what, I guess I forget, Evan, exactly what.
So an accessory structure is defined as something typically secondary or incidental to your primary use. In this case, a house, something secondary, common with a residential use would be a garage, garden shed, what have you, something along those lines. A walk-in freezer is not typically associated with residential use. That wouldn't really fall under the definition of an accessory structure. I think where Mike would come into play is, any sort of improvement on your property, you're likely going to need a building permit, would have to meet any building code requirements, any electrical code requirements, et cetera. So whatever you do to your property, if you're adding on building, et cetera, is going to have to meet some sort of code requirements. So that's where Mike comes into play. Zoning really dictates, the size, the shape, and the use of what you're proposing. So this amendment in theory would, allow you to have your home occupation, your special home occupation, if you will, in your house, an accessory structure such as a garage or shed, or if this amendment were approved, the third option would be a walk-in freezer or fridge of some sort, similar to what Mr. Newman's proposing.
And I did want to clarify one thing with Mike. He did have conversations with the manufacturer about snow load capability and stability and all that, and he said it meets his. I clarified with him. I said if it were to be approved tonight, can I have an electrician come out like on Friday? And he said, yep, as long as the zoning issue is resolved, he is fine with me. I already have submitted pending a equipment permit for. Oh yeah, I guess he does consider equipment permit pending to plug it in, and the electrical permit pending.
On the, between the fence that you have and the back of your garage, is there room to, I think you had told the planning commission that you weren't adverse to having some shrubbery to hide what does show from the street?
Oh, I mean, I guess if that were to be a stipulation, I would try to find a way to make it work. So right now, that 2 feet is visible. I guess if you wanted me to plan.
What's behind the fence? That's a gate, right?
Oh, this right here?
That's a gate?
No, this is the fence gate. Oh, that was just my trailer park.
Oh, but, okay, so it's tight up against the garage in the backside.
Yes, yep, so it starts back here at the kind of,
Yep.
that niche, and it goes out, and about 2.5 feet or so sticks out past.
Not a lot of room to screen it from the street?
I'll tell
That was
you,
one of
if
the-
I wanted to, so, I could put in, I would think 1 or 2 arborvitaes right in front would take a few years to grow to that height. But I think currently, it's not in the regulations for the accessory structure to be screened, so our proposal was, as long as it follows the same rules as an accessory structure, I thought that would be a simple.
Well, the only reason,
Add that in, I could.
yeah, I was gonna say, the only reason to say that is because it's the same with adding and about locking it. It's just another,
I couldn't hear that.
the same with, as the planning commission wanted it locked, this is just another aspect to make it more appealable.
Me planting a couple of trees, they grow 1 to 2 feet a year for an arborvitae, and
Sure.
up there in 3 years, 4 years.
A lot of this discussion, from my perspective, really is looking out to see if unintended consequences. It sounds great, because I think you used what you've said tonight, and from my own personal perspective, you've demonstrated you're trying to stay within the framework of what the intent was, so I leave it at that.
Ben, do you have a business plan?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of time on spreadsheets and thinking about options. It's hard to predict how things change over time.
I mean, it seems like you're doing well. I mean, is this, maybe next year it's a franchise?
So there's.
Hey, I'm looking out for
I don't think
it.
anyone's want to buy it until I show a profit. So probably not quite yet.
Where I'm going with this is, do you have any plans to expand enough where you're gonna have to move?
It's a good question. So I feel, and I alluded to it earlier, I feel it's probably like a 50-50 that I will be moving, or at least getting a second location where most business is done, and this is just where I make them.
And that's where I was talking to the attorney about some sort of other avenue versus this special home occupation, where we could give you time, but this just can't go on and on. You keep expanding and making this overwhelmingly a huge business there where you should be moving.
I guess I don't want to, hopefully it doesn't come off poorly, but is there somewhere in the code that's written that says something to that aversion, or is that more of like a feeling I guess when I read the code, it doesn't say anything about like time, or there's nothing listed. I guess I thought when you get your permit, we made it open-ended.
No, this gets back to my original concern that your business is way more consuming than the home is. So eventually, if you get too big, it is a business now, and the home is secondary.
Sure. I guess in my understanding, there are many rules. People can look them up if they want, but there are many rules for this special home occupation permit, and they're limited in there. 1 employee, not open on Sundays. They have all these rules. So as my understanding, if I follow all the rules, I am within the intent of the code. And that's what I want to clarify. If there's any of those rules that you feel I'm not following, I guess it's hard to, it seems murky, it's hard to tell where your line is, or what would be a line that would be decided for what's too big or what's not too big.
I want to ask another question.
Yes, sir.
Optimistically thinking.
Yes.
5 years from now, you don't move to Hawaii. Instead, somebody comes up and offers you $5 million to buy your pie business where it's located right now. And that's kind of what I think is the law of unintended consequences. I mean, I'm just thinking dream right now. I think it'd be kind of hard to say no. But then the house would remain, house business would remain, and then we would be still dealing with an occupation that has taken over the house. I think that's kind of sort of maybe what you're getting
Yeah,
at.
That's a good question. I
Both.
think that's already addressed in the current writing of the zoning ordinance. It says that the homeowner has to be the main. So I guess a person could buy my house, become the resident, and do exactly what I'm doing, but they can't expand it any further. You have to be the person living there, and you're one employee. You can only have one employee who's not living at the residence. So I guess if I were to sell to someone and they become the new version of me, I guess I don't see the issue there. But they couldn't expand it. I guess we have our rules already written out that I'm following. I guess someone else could follow the same rules. They would have to go through the same process because it doesn't run with the land. They would have to come to you, correct, Evan, and say, hey, we reapply for this permit, and you could deny them or allow them. But they would have to go through the process. It doesn't run with the land. So
Yeah, that brings up a question though. If someone does buy his property and they rent the house, is that still a viable home occupation? They don't, they're not living
Because
there. They have to,
they have to live there. I mean,
not just owning it qualifies, all right.
yeah, the business operator has to be the occupant of the home at the same time.
All right, well, that's all I'm concerned about is if you plan on going to go full force and you want to grow and get bigger, eventually you're going to have to move. You're just not going to have the room.
Yeah, and
But
so-
now we're sitting there with that, something that we've been massaging to try to help you out. Now we're going to have to try to stymie it.
Yes, sir.
And it brought up another point. This may be off the cuff, but now you have a walk-in freezer. What's to say, Chad, that all of a sudden the butcher doesn't do the same thing down the road? Now he's got and he's treating deer every fall, and you got 15, 20 carcasses laying in the driveway.
First, they got to get the home
Well, I
occupation.
understand.
Going back to what we
But
discussed.
we're already allowing a walk-in freezer, so like Scott said, unintended consequences. Now we just opened up the door for something else in that walk-in freezer, not pies.
Look at,
Mr. Chair? Get out of the box here, it just makes me nervous on some of this stuff.
I understand exactly what you're driving at, and sure, I mean, if I or Evan were to say, oh, don't worry about that, it's never going to happen, we'd be doing our jobs, because you're exactly right. You know, you could have someone who wants to start processing deer, or for all you know, if someone has a stockyard in their backyard, and they're butchering cows. No, hang on, Ben. But my point being is the chair is correct. There are variations that could come, that could create problems in the future.
All I'm getting
But-
is it possible to narrow down this amendment to eliminate those kind of options? I know it's kind of vague, but when we do some of these, we try to get them so specific that no one else can duplicate it.
The only way you can do that is through a conditional use permit system or an interim use permit system, where you're allowed to tailor the use of the property. But again, as I said before, you don't want to do a conditional use permit because that becomes permanent. And now an interim use permit is probably the better option. But for what you're concerned about, to answer your question, sure. Could someone come in and start a butchering business? Sure, they could. They could apply for it, whether you grant it or not is something else.
But under the terms of what we're allowing Ben, a home occupation, it would fit.
Well, provided he passes the Minnesota Department of Health
that's
also
true.
and all the other requirements to go along with it.
If I might try to clarify or alleviate any concerns you have, I would say your hypothetical would apply to.
You're not a hunter, are you, Ben?
Not, well, I don't have the time for that, I think your hypothetical is a good hypothetical, but it does apply to everything currently in the code already. So this one accessory structure, what could they do in there? Anything they want. It's already in the code. Mine is just clarifying the exact same thing they say with right now I could do a 1,000 square foot building. I could even build something over the top, which doesn't really change your it doesn't particularly apply to the hypothetical because it's already allowed. This is just allowing a freezer, which again, according to current code, I could just build a building on top of it. It just doesn't make sense to do that. It is an outdoor structure. It just doesn't meet the current definition of what the town views as an accessory structure. So that's the only reason we're explicitly allowing it, because it falls in this weird gap. Is it equipment or is it a structure? Well, you walk inside of it, it has 4 walls, a ceiling, you can stand on top of it, but it also freezes things, so is it a structure? So this is kind of a clarification, but I do feel it follows the exact same intent of the rest of the code. We're following all the same restrictions as a storage building would. Again, I think the clearest example is that if my current business model, I freeze pies, but many business models, they do fresh pies, right? And they do them at room storage temperature for the week. If I had the same building and I just had it air conditioned 70 degrees, I wouldn't have had to go through this whole process. It would be automatically approved. It's just that it's freezing it to -10. We're amending it to fix it. So we can see that this would be allowed in almost any circumstance except for that it's -10.
Okay, 100%. Actually, to address your question, Mr. Chair, it's not, yes, I mean, the fact is, you could put a freezer inside an accessory structure right now and meet the requirements of a home business occupation. So really, to address your concern, it's not, the freezer is not the issue. The issue is what uses the town wants to allow. And that's probably what you should be doing. You should be looking at your home use occupation ordinance to decide if you want to start limiting uses. And right now, you're not too concerned, you've never been concerned about uses because the uses have been relatively small and with low impact. And I'm not saying you have a big impact, okay? I'm not saying that at all, but so we're clear. But what the chair is concerned about are other businesses that could have a much higher impact than what you have. And so really what we need to do is need to look at the type of business occupations you're going to allow under the ordinance, not the structures per se, it's the type of businesses. So that's probably, that'd be in my mind, that'd be the best way to address your concerns.
And it's not uncommon for a lot of communities to explicitly state, auto repair would not be a permitted home occupation. Stockyards, for example, would not be a permitted home occupation. So you could actually, explicitly state very specifically what would and would not meet that definition as well, so.
All right, board have any other questions of Ben?
No.
I don't think so.
All right, thanks, Ben.
Is there no clarifications?
You may have to step back up if someone points out something that we want a
All right,
clarification.
anybody else here want to speak to Ben's walk-in freezer?
I Yes.
Just state your name and address for the record.
Chuck Mason, 1317 Stewart. Ben, I have a couple questions. What was your customer base?
You want to direct them to the board?
Okay. I would like
and
to know
if we can't
customer
answer 'em.
base of 2021, 2022, and what he expects in 2023. I would like to understand his growth.
Well, that's why I was back to the business plan and its growth and its eventual long-term plans. But
Yeah.
right now, he's just trying to pay the bills and make a pie, so.
But I think if you look at it, the growth of his customers, it should give you an indication if he's going to be able to afford to go to Hawaii or not.
And again, that's all speculation, and we're not in
Well, I know,
we're not in the
but I
business of
know.
that.
Well, I realize that, okay? But I think, how many in-home businesses do we have in White Bear Township?
Well, that's what you're discussing.
Legitimate ones? The reason I say that, Chuck, is because as the chair pointed out, we know we have home-based businesses that we don't know about
Right.
officially.
Or we do, and they just thumb their nose at us.
Yeah.
Yes, so,
I mean, I, for one, I enjoy your food. I think there's a lot of other folks here that enjoy it. And I would hope that you would give consideration to his request.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Come on up.
Clark Hubener, 1641 Garden Lane. And I just want to support Ben and his business and his family, and I'm glad to see him in the township. It's a real plus to us, and he's quite an upstanding individual. Thank you.
Thanks, Clark. Come on up.
Yeah, Mark Schwartz, 4161 Lakewood Avenue, White Bear Township. I met Ben about 2 years ago because I could have been your second case of, I'm wilder than him as far as I was I'm into gelato. I'm in the gelato shop in downtown White Bear Lake, and part of it is because of this guy supported me. I walked into him 2 years ago and I said, "Hey, what are you doing in your garage over here?" Because I'm thinking of doing this in my basement. I'm thinking of doing this. I'm thinking of building a thing in my backyard. I'm thinking of this. I'm thinking of this, and I could tell this guy had his stuff together. And I guess the thing that I want to say is he is a part of the community, and I've felt that part of the community being in the last year in downtown White Bear Lake. The community likes, and this guy's an entrepreneur, and you can speculate all these things, and I know that you guys are going to figure out the future about what you can limit and what you can't and those types of things. To me, it seems like a simple request for someone who's got a really cool business and people like it, and it's becoming known. So anyway, I just wanted to put in a plug for him and say, he's a passionate guy. These are the kind of businesses you want running in your community. It's a good thing for your community, so.
Thanks, Mark.
Single file.
Actually, I'm going to make a suggestion, just line up.
Yeah, just line up.
Hi, Kimberly and Joshua Monsrud. We live at 1642 Park Avenue, which is literally right around the corner from Ben the Baker. We never even noticed the structure was up until we saw Ben's picture. We drove down Otter Lake slowly and went, oh yeah, there is something back there. I don't know if you've had Ben's pies. They are delicious. But for the health and well-being of this community, Ben and his pies need to stay here. He is a very valuable member of the community, and as are his baked goods. And we are neighbors, and we don't see any issue with what he has in his backyard.
Well, the township has parties once in a while, and we have had his pies. Full disclosure.
Yeah, and as a plug, he is also a part of Township Day activity vendors, so we know that, so thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Eric Bakke. I live at 1309 Stuart, S-T-U-A-R-T Avenue. I say that because people mix that up, but I live across the street from Eagle Park. So I just wanted to address a few things that got brought up at this meeting. You had said that Ben is asking for forgiveness instead of for permission. And I don't believe that Ben has tried to do anything outside of the rules, anything that would be disrespectful to the process. I think he's been moving forward to the best of his ability following the rules. He also said that it would be hard to say no if you approve this. Well, that's why we elect you guys, is to say no when it needs to be said. We talked about, can you put a fence or something up to limit the viewing of it? In my neighborhood, there's 2 houses that have decrepit cars in their driveway. There's a house that has been condemned. There's another house that is owned by a hoarder, and in the summertime, she's got all her stuff out in the driveway. Ben has done a tremendous amount of work to his property in the 5 years that I've been coming to his place to make sure that his property looks good and it represents the community well. I don't see that anything would be wrong with approving this. To think about what might happen, well, right now, I like Ben a lot. I don't see him as a guy that has a big business plan. I see him as a guy that wants to make the best pies he can, and now it just keeps, looking at my belly, you can tell people like his pies, and it keeps getting bigger. But I think that he's the kind of guy we want in our community. I see him out at White Bear Township days. I see him down at the, whatever that Thursday night thing is in Market Fest. Thank you. I see him there. He represents the community well, and people like him.
Yeah, I just want to make one clarification. That when I said beg for forgiveness, usually these kind of applications are done before the freezer shows up.
Well, I think
So that's where, I don't want to have you mince words with me, but this would have been a lot easier process for us if that's the way it went. It put us in a tough position, and that's why we're having this with a lot of people sitting here because it's hard to massage this now when we could have massaged it before it got here. So just for the record, I don't want to have anybody accusing us of any misgivings here, so.
But that's what I'm trying to state. I don't believe Ben was trying to get around what the rules were. I believe he was functioning within what he believed the rules were.
I can clarify, you know, I
All right, Ben, we're going to take a moment at a time.
Anyway, so
Our audio and stuff's only going to pick up who's at the podium, so.
I would encourage you to move forward with this for Ben.
All right, thank
and the
you.
Community.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Go ahead. Steve said you're going to be up here a couple times.
I clarify, yes, like I had thought that I would have been in compliance. I didn't even think to ask. I didn't think that it would have been a thing that had not been allowed with the wording of it, one accessory structure, et cetera. I didn't think that wouldn't been allowed, so I ordered it. And then I called to get my electrical permit. So I wasn't trying to sneak anything through. Like you said, I wasn't trying to sneak anything, but also I should have asked thinking that there's stuff I don't know. So that's true. I probably should have in January called, hey, wild idea here. This wouldn't be blocked, would it? And then I did come through. So we would still have to go through the same process of zoning amendment to make it pass, but I could have done it without it sitting on the property for sure. So I just wanted to clarify that it was, I didn't.
Appreciate that, Ben.
Hi, my name is Jim Peary. I live at 1674 Whitaker Street, just a couple hundred feet from Water Gremlin. And I've been over to Ben's, and he's done a tremendous job. He supports his community, and to me, he's more than just a businessman. He's someone who's found his dream, and he's chasing it. And I love that, and I'm glad that the township seems to support people like that. It really makes me want to live here. Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Jake Serac, 4415 Otter Lake Road. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you for allowing me to run a home business for
Ever.
And the last township meeting we had when I was granted 5 years for a business license, I made it very clear that nobody wants to get out of my backyard more than me. As he grows, I foresee him growing and moving on, and to allow us to do these things to provide for our families and grow in the community. I mean, I personally am super thankful for it. And seeing him at Township Days, me being at Township Days, we're giving back to the community. I mean, all our proceeds are donated to White Bear Township for the car show, etc. I had the opportunity to buy a commercial location, as you know, and that's because of the opportunities you gave us. So I say Ben should probably just paint it brown to match his house and nobody can see it from the road. But a couple of the rules were you have to be presentable from the street, curb appeal, my rules were not having cars there, out in the open and this and that. You drive past Ben's house, the yard is great. The landscaping's great. He didn't just put class 5 down for his parking lot. And the way I see it is he's definitely a big part of this community and he's going to keep growing and he's going to be thanking you someday just like I am.
All right, thanks, Jake. I want you all folks to realize, we're not trying to put Ben out of business here.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. We don't think that way.
The township has always taken pride in township atmosphere, township living. We don't want to be like the city or the county. We want to be the township.
Yep.
And I think we're proving it right here because we're sitting here listening to all these stories, and we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence, especially because, like I said, when we approve or amend some of this stuff, we just don't want to see it come back to bite us. So that's why we beat these things to death before we okay them.
Absolutely. Yep. Well, I've been through the meetings.
Appreciate it, Jake.
I definitely know, and thank you again.
See you at the car show.
More to the point, actually, if I may, Mr. Chair. More to the point is not so much that is the board concerned that somebody's going to come back and aggravate them. They're more concerned about how it affects the community at large. That's what the concern is.
Because all our actions have reactions. And this board may be gone when that hits the fan, and they're going to look back and go, what were they thinking? All right, go ahead, sorry.
I'm Margaret Koenig, I live at 1584 Whitaker Street, which is on the corner of Otter Lake Road and Whitaker Street. I live across from Viking Auto. My property abuts Water Gremlin, so I've seen lots of changes on Otter Lake Road, south of 96. When Ben's sign first went up, seemed to be a small business. And then I kept seeing improvements, meaning things that in past, going to township meetings when you guys were approving Viking Auto. So I could tell that his business and what he wanted to do was being guided by the town board, the town planner, town attorney, this guy too.
Whoever he is.
What I have seen,
We're going to change his plaque to this guy too.
I can live with
the
that.
one that really keeps the wheels going, the attorney.
Puppet master.
About that.
So what I'm saying is, your process is good. You make people sign up for a certain amount of time. They have to go through the hoops to come down and get their business approved, like Viking Autos, renewed, so on and so forth. They must keep up their property. And from what I have seen, and, going in personally once to the business, that I would definitely support the township hooking up this freezer in whatever shape and form it has to be hooked up, because I also worked in food service as a registered dietitian and working in kitchens over the years. And you need a freezer to have a bakery, to, store your shortening when you want to order in bulk, and your products when you want to sell them and bake them, things like that. So I would certainly support this business as a resident on Otter Lake Road. Thank you.
Thanks, Margaret. Got a lot of fans.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Kyle, and this is Sam. We're at 3934 Portland Avenue in White Bear Township, the southern side, southern east, I guess, technically. We've been customers of Ben's for a couple years now, and kind of to echo his points, it feels like he's doing this in the spirit of what the ordinance is asking. He's just kind of found that little niche corner case where I want to do this thing, and what you have doesn't really, doesn't really cover it. And I think you guys have fantastic questions as of, what are you doing with this, right? What does your Hawaii plan look like? What does all of this look like? And I think those are great questions. And I think Ben has, as we've seen, answers to, almost all of them. So basically, we're just kind of coming out to kind of show our support for Ben, and we think we should, or you guys rather, should approve it moving forward.
All right, thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.
Hi, Dan and Debbie Magnuson, 1590 Park Avenue. We live literally around the corner from Ben. Ben and his business have been great neighbors for us, and we'd urge you to pass the change in the ordinance.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kara Sommerfeld. I live at 4374 Fisher Lane. I don't know Ben personally. I've just enjoyed his pies multiple times over the years. And I just wanted to come and support him and say if he happened to be my neighbor and this was coming up for issue, I would fully support any changes. And I think it would be great to live next to him and his family and the bakery in the current state he's hoping to have
Are you
it.
trying to get a deal on a pie?
I am not taking a deal on pies, but you're right. Just here in support.
Thank you.
My name is Gary Hedin. I live at 3731 Highland Avenue in White Bear Lake. I do enjoy his pies.
Oh, wait a minute, Gary. White Bear Lake?
I know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm across the highway. I do also enjoy his pies, but I feel a little apprehensive from trying to start a business in your town. I also want to start a small business in my home doing a smoke shop with animals. And I'm not going to butcher them, but I just like to smoke them and sell them to the public. So, you know, I'd have to go through the health department things on those too. But if I needed a bigger freezer, you know, I wanted to make sure that I'd be allowed things like that too. And within reason. And, you know, what does it say here? The special home occupations that he's already qualified for, he's living in his residence and he's operating his business out of it. It doesn't say anything about how big it gets. It's just, I give him more power to make as much money as he can because he's reduced his carbon footprint. He walks to work. And that's great for the environment, and we're supposed to be encouraging that, so I hope you pass this too. Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Hey, good evening. I'm a visitor to the White Bear Township. I'm down the road. I'm in Delwood. My name is Michelle Patnod. I'm at 79 Many Levels, and I'm here because I support Ben. I patronize his business, and I also think he has done everything up to this point that you needed. Ask the questions. You guys are all doing what you need to do, because that's why you're here, asking the questions, verifying things. I think over-speculating is a little extreme, but that's the nature of what this meeting's about. But I would like to be here as another voice to support Ben and his endeavors.
Thank you.
I'm Joan Newman, 1763 Linden Cove. I've known this man since he was born. I understand the reservations that you have. I'm asking that as a business person that has tried to follow the rules and done it legitimately, when you say there are a number of other businesses that aren't following the rules, I hope you'll take that into consideration. And that if other businesses do want to start up, they have to follow the same process. And you can say no and not allow a future business. I just hope that he won't be, I don't want to say punished, but I hope that this will be granted. I hope it will, what am I trying to say? I don't want it not to be granted because of a future possibility down the road that he has nothing to do with. So I just hope you take that into consideration. He's trying to do the right thing, and if another business comes and it's a problem, you can deny it at that time, but I hope it won't affect his request for this permit. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Joan.
Always good to have mom's support.
I'm Tricia Kessler. I live at 766 Montana Avenue East in St. Paul.
Wow, we're getting farther and farther away here.
I asked any would-be council only, he said any neighboring community.
Yeah.
It's not a problem. Don't worry about it.
Not a problem.
Not a problem.
Well, I just wanted to say, because of Ben's business, as you guys have heard, is many people enjoy, but because of that, we have come to White Bear Township more times in the last probably 3 to 4 years than I definitely ever intended. No slight, but because of this business, it has brought us to White Bear Township to support him, and then because we have 2 children, we have visited other businesses while we are here. We have driven by different parks and stopped because our boys want to get out and play. And so this has been a benefit. As you've heard, he is a benefit to the community. He has tried, and there are businesses that won't do what you ask whenever you ask them. I have seen tonight, it feels like that this business is trying to do what is right. And so I hope that we help support him.
All right, thank you.
I'm Krista Boostrom, 3731 Highland Avenue, no relation to that same address, over in White Bear Lake. So I just wanted to say I appreciate that Ben has done kind of a redundant thing here, but he's done everything that is being asked of him, and that you guys are doing the same, that you're doing what's asked of you. I lived in Vadnais Heights prior to moving to White Bear Lake, and it's hard to be at these meetings, and it's hard to get up and speak. And so kudos to everybody who's done that in support of Ben and for Ben himself for doing that. And I just wanted to say that because there are a lot of things that go into these decisions. And I think that from what I understand, it is Ben's doing the right thing. He's asking to do it in the right way. And there are businesses or people that are running not legitimate businesses out of their homes that are doing other things that are more detrimental to the community. And even though we're from the other side of the highway, I do enjoy White Bear Township. I visit here a lot, and I mean, it's so far, but we just like to see the community coming together and supporting each other. So thank you for giving us your time, and for everybody here giving their time to Ben.
All right, thank you. It's great to hear all this support. I know, like I said, I've been in regular city meetings where there's a guy sitting in the corner with a little timer, and when he slams that thing, you're cut off. Township is not like that. We like to hear from everybody. All you guys' input's very important to us. It's what makes our decisions easier, because it's not that I'm saying you're swaying it, but we get a sense of sometimes we just overlook certain things because we do have to follow the law. That's what we're elected to do. So we appreciate, though, when you guys show up, and no one will ever be, I think I've used this thing twice in about 10 years, so. I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, well, I will keep mine short and sweet. I am Debbie Rasmussen. I live at 710 Heather Drive in Shoreview, so I come to White Bear Township because one reason, Ben's Pies. I don't know him personally, but it's brought me to your city more than other times in my life, because last summer we went to Market Fest on Thursday, and when I saw that he was selling a pie, and is it a shake or a malt? Shake? And I went, what? Raspberry pretzel in a shake pie? Oh, it was delicious. And since then I've come more than, I had to come back because it was so good. Many Thursdays. So I just am here to support Ben in his business, and I hope you consider passing.
Thank you. And is this going on YouTube as like a commercial?
You better change your advertising strategy.
You don't have to. I'm Alex Fisher. I'm actually at 2171 Matthias Road in Shakopee. Used to live in the area, but here to support Ben. I just want to speak to
somebody here from Rochester,
Duluth. He's worth it. He's a good guy, and I just kind of want to speak to his character. Ben is an amazing person. He works extremely hard. He loves every type of person. He's an amazing father to a beautiful adopted baby girl and teaches Sunday school every Sunday. He's a devoted husband and a great friend. He's an Iraq veteran and a small business owner. He's the type of man we should be supporting and propping up in this community. I don't think we should be hindering his ability to support his family and grow his business based on a technicality. I just ask you to consider my words and think what is right for Ben in the city. Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
And I'm Michelle Hartman. I actually live with him in Shakopee, 2171 Matthias Road. But I have been a permanent resident of Minnesota since 2016. After spending 4 years and a good amount of tuition dollars in the state, I decided to call Minnesota my home for good. I was an out-of-state student who fell in love with Minnesota's natural beauty, abundance of job opportunities, and a variety of safe, clean, and tight-knit communities. And now here's where I messed up, because I quote White Bear Lake. I did not realize this was Township. But we're going to use it anyway. We're going to use it. You guys are close enough in proximity. I know, Shakopee messing up. So Ramsey County's website calls White Bear Lake the ideal place to live, play, and do business in the Twin Cities, with a sense of civic pride demonstrated through the area's high level of community engagement and facilitated by the numerous volunteer, social, business, and civic organizations and associations. So you can thank upstanding citizens like the Newmans for that glowing statement. Ben and Hannah Newman are not only small business owners in the town of White Bear Township, but they're adoptive parents, a veteran, a first responder, a Sunday school teacher, black belt martial artist, adoptive pet parents, exceptional pie bakers, the list goes on. So I'm inspired by the sense of community that exists here. I would only hope that local government would put citizens like the Newmans first, doing everything in their power to enable small businesses that make this town what it is thrive. After all, White Lake, is known as the first resort town in Minnesota, and I think you have small business owners to thank for that. So without the walk-in freezer, they not only lose out on growing their business, which is the main source of income for the family, but their savings. They're depending on the ROI from this freezer to fund future medical bills for their recently adopted preemie baby Shelby, a college fund for Shelby, and anything else that a parent would want to give their child. So I ask you, are you going to let sin tax stand in the way of this family's future, or are you going to make it right?
Thank you.
My name is Santos Martinez, 505 Harriet Avenue, Shoreview. Ben was one of my first instructors and also kind of an employer after I quit my job to pursue a passion. As someone who's been taught and worked for Ben for a long time, he is the biggest rule follower ever. It almost kind of to a bummer, but he has not done anything out of code that, especially working with him, he's done everything by the book. And especially getting this freezer in would be a big help for him, especially since he's going to be growing his business, and he's dumping a lot of money into this and hasn't turned a dime. So especially since he's paid me and I've messed up a few pies a couple times. So I'd really like to see him actually get some money back. Hope to move forward with this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ben, you're going to have to give up pies and run for president. All right, one more, then we're going to wrap this up.
Hi, Kevin Klecker. I live at 4190 Park Ridge Drive. I'm a resident here. I don't know Ben. I didn't even really know his business until a couple of years ago, but I drive by it all the time. I cross Otter Lake Road in 96 every day. I saw the sign out there. I finally tried it and wowed. And I'm like, these are the kind of small businesses you love. Like my wife owns, she's self-employed and owns a business. And you just, when you're in that small business owner world, you really want to support each other. So I'm here just to speak in support of that amendment. You can see his commitment to doing right, and his intentions are there to do the thing right. And I can see you guys are here committed to having this conversation and trying to do the best you can. So I support the amendment, and I hope you guys do as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
I'll move to close the public portion of the hearing.
Second.
All fair, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, board, have any other questions of Evan?
I do.
Evan, okay.
I just want to clarify, I think I heard this a couple times, Evan, but I just need to process it in my brain correctly. If instead of having a freezer delivered in the backyard, there had been a shed built and then something slid under it, this would not be a problem.
Correct. The idea is that a home occupation would kind of blend in with the residence, so it would be in the house, in your garage, in a typical accessory structure found in a residence.
Okay.
And so the issue is a walk-in freezer kind of is beyond that typical boundary of what is typically with a residence.
Okay, and I do have a sort of a comment question for Ben. Can I still do that since it's out of the public hearing?
Okay, we're just one time.
And I guess this is more, it's more just to make sure that we're level setting, because I hear that you're a rule follower. And I'm wanting to make sure that in 5 to 10 years, as you continue to progress and more people are showing up, that the intent is that this still remains a home-based business and it doesn't become a business that just happens to have a house attached to it. Slight variations, different of perception, but I know you were asking earlier for what was meant. My concern is that it becomes a business first, and that's what's very obvious. And oh, by the way, there's an apartment stuck on the side. So it's more maybe not a question so much, but just kind of making sure that there's that fine line that we are thinking through. And if you're a rule follower, which I hear is the case, then as you continue to expand, you are thinking potentially down the road, your spreadsheets will allow you to move on to other locales. And I guess I would just ask that potential intent still be looked at as a possibility when you reach a certain point.
Yes, sir. And for my end to see from me or any other business owner, any clarification of what that means would be helpful. If that means passing, on some other meeting, some extra stipulations. And it's just hard. I don't know what that means.
I know, and
I don't know what that means, so I don't know
Sure.
what I would do. I don't have any plans right now to build or add anything anyways, but I don't, any clarification would be helpful. It's hard to know what to aim for if I don't know what the line is. I know all the lines written in there, one employee only, no Sundays, so I'm following everything that's written down. If you can write down some more things for me, I'd be glad to follow it.
So we can write down all sorts of rules and regulations.
I think I'm following the intent of it.
We can write down all sorts of rules and regulations, but if you follow the intent of what we're trying to achieve, and sometimes you know what the intent is, even though it may not be specifically spelled out. And that's what I'm getting at.
Sure.
There's times you can drive by someplace and you get a feel for how, you just get a sense that it's getting bigger. The tail is wagging the dog. I don't know that we can write down any more regulations to try and, because we don't want to restrict growth, but at the same time, we're hoping that you will partner with us in making sure that everybody seems to think that you're doing a fabulous job so far in blending into the neighborhood.
Okay.
And that's what I would hope would continue to happen.
Yes, sir. And I think hopefully one of the things we did that Evan worked with me on when I did the parking lot was we put a full privacy hedge around the whole thing. So if there are people coming in a few at a time for like a pickup day, you can barely see it because so they're supposed to grow 1 to 2 feet a year, and you only buy them, they're only 2 feet tall. But hopefully in a few years they'll all blend together, be a full 6-foot hedge that I can trim, and you won't be able to see anything unless you're right in front of the driveway. So no one from the corner of the street could see anything except for the sign that's allowed out front. So hopefully that will help a lot. That it's really hard to even kind of see, and people have to kind of look me up to even find what I am. So hopefully that will help.
That's it. Thank you. I'm done.
Well, I was going to say is, you can stand up there if you want. You kind of drive the future of your business by how successful you are. So your growth, you have to come back periodically for the special home occupancy permit renewal. At some point, if you grow leaps and bounds such as Sweet Martha's Cookies, I'm sure you'd want to be someplace other than in your garage made into a kitchen. And you drive that with your success. So I think we've been down this road enough that we do see what your plan is to grow as best you can right now in your residential environment. But someday, hopefully, it'll expand if that's where your passion takes you.
Yes, sir.
So, with that, I'm done.
In fact, any other questions of Evan?
No, I think I've covered it all.
Chad, any last words?
Well, just let's be clear on one point. The town board and the town ordinance are designed to support small business owners as long as the business is compatible with their neighbors. And that is the problem that the board has to deal with all the time. So keep in mind, it's not a question, do we like Ben? It's a question of, can Ben's business operate in a manner that's compatible with his neighbors? That's the issue. That's the concern.
Well,
I've heard that. I've figured that out, by the way.
For those that do not know, the permitted use, it says it's a residential, its use is permitted in the residential district and to assure peace, quiet, and domestic tranquility within residential neighborhoods. And so, that's, to his point, that's kind of the framework of this whole business, and appreciate all the comments.
All right, hearing that, what's the pleasure of the board?
Well, my pleasure. Well, first off, are we going to have to talk about just the wording changes, or are we going to look at a different interim use permit? I think we can go right to the permit change personally, language change.
Wording within the existing request.
And again, as Evan pointed out, you have three options. Either adopt this as presented, deny it as presented, or table it and go to and do something else.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended section 711-3B, ordinance 35 to permit a walk-in freezer for special home occupations.
I'll second.
Motion's made and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're not gonna take a bow.
I didn't know if you were sure. I got like 30 slices of pie. So win or lose, we're probably down to maybe about 30 now. Yeah.
And before he walks out the door, Township Days is coming up?
Yep, I'll be there.
Be there to support him. That's what you're doing.
Bring everyone.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
We still have work to do here, so.
Good night. Thanks for coming.
Nobody wants to hear about edible cannabis.
Let's see how many people stick around for it.
Same here. And again, thanks for the picture. That was great.
They saw the parking lot.
I will.
Okay, this guy's here for
I will.
You bet.
Take care.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Thanks for coming over. I appreciate it.
All right, we're gonna move on.
I live in Danvers Heights, so you're very respectful, very, very, you guys, the way the world is right now, very good. I thought I maybe want to say something, so that's why I came.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. We have ordinance number 97. This is also a public hearing, so I need a motion to waive the reading.
I'll move to waive the reading that was properly published.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Need a motion to open up the public hearing?
I'll move to open up the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, who's taking this one?
Chad and I can tag team this one. What you have in front of you is a draft effort on regulating the sale of cannabinoid products, edible in particular, in conjunction and in coordination with the state's moves towards legalizing this kind of product for sale. We at the township have put this forward to you, the board, for your consideration to adopt so that we can license the sale and regulate it from a municipal standpoint. Just as an aside, we have been given 2 calls from 2 existing businesses within the township that are looking for direction on how to go about selling this type of product, and we are looking to get licensing in place so that we can begin regulating from an ordinance standpoint. Anything else there, Chad?
No, I mean, Pat summed it up pretty well. You need this, otherwise you're gonna have lots of, this was a cakewalk compared to what you've been dealing with when it comes to these products. So you need this framework so you can regulate it in a reasonable manner.
All right, reading through this whole thing, is there anything that stops somebody from selling this out of their house?
Well,
it just didn't, it talked about buildings, businesses, we could have an home occupation one that, are they gonna sell it out of their house?
Oh, that's a good point, and you know what?
I didn't know if this defines it, or?
So I drafted this borrowing from it is almost a dozen different cities. But now that I think about it, I don't think anything is specified in here from operating or selling from home. Now that I think about it.
But doesn't that go to what Chad said earlier, that maybe we need to define what we will accept or not accept as home occupation?
Yeah.
Which would take care of that for us?
That's already an existing ordinance, so.
Yeah, and actually, what we really need to look at, we need to look at the zoning code, because 5-2 says no license will be approved unless the premises proposed to be licensed complies with all applicable zoning requirements. I mean, I don't like to compare cannabis products with adult bookstores. They're not the same thing. They're different. Both the way, they're just different, the way society looks at it. So, but we deal with adult bookstores through zoning. We can do the same thing with this.
True.
So if you want, the next step would probably be to have Evan look at the zoning code and see if we should adjust the zoning code to either forbid it completely or create a conditional use permit.
And we're already reviewing and changing ordinances, so.
Yeah.
We have to, or maybe I misunderstood, we have to allow at least one establishment to be able to sell it within the township. That's
Under
not
the
what you-
state statute.
Under the
yeah.
state statute. Is that what you're talking about? That we
No,
can-
no, no, no.
Oh, okay.
No, no, no. No, because what the question was just about it was a home
Gotcha.
occupation.
Okay.
That's exactly what you're concerned with, because, yeah, theoretically it could be. So the best way to attack that, I withdraw the word attack, the best way to deal with it is to deal with the zoning code. Aaron, you have a comment on that?
Yeah, and I guess this is more a question to Chad, but I know when the state approved this, they did note that they were going to be establishing some state mandated, if you will, requirements or limitations that cities or townships could adopt, and so I don't think that's occurred yet, but obviously if that's something we want to consider on our own, we can certainly do that here.
Yeah, the problem, though, is, and Evan's exactly right, but here's the problem, is, remember, in 2022, they adopted the sale of cannabinoid products, and that statute was pretty useless, to be honest with you.
The state made something useless?
More useless than usual. That's my political comment for the night. And it created problems for municipalities. And part of this ordinance is designed to deal with that, with the holes that the state created in 2022. At least with the 2023 Cannabis Act, they did, right, you know, you have to have a state license as well as local licenses as required, plus the state's not in a position to even issue licenses till January of 2025. So we got time, but that's not the same for like the cannabinoid infused drinks that people want to sell, because that's what we're really seeing.
Yep.
They want to start selling.
Yep, now.
Yeah, and that's really what this is designed to deal with.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to really do it now. But right, Evan's exactly right. For a lot of other products, we have time. Some products, we don't.
Well, do we have a deadline on this one?
Well, basically, remember, our moratorium ran out in August. We got to do it now. You know, and my advice is do it now.
And to the credit of the businesses that are inquiring about this, they are aware that it discontinued in August. However, they're still waiting for this to be implemented so they can go about the proper channels of being.
Want to do it right.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is good for them.
No one's asking for forgiveness here.
No, no comment.
Oh, no, and I mean,
You're right.
I've heard.
I know,
There's lots of stories out there about guys just, not just, say, people just showing up in corners selling cannabinoid lollipops.
Yeah.
Didn't the city have a couple businesses that get caught
Yep.
selling before they were allowed?
Yep. So, yeah, really, this is important you deal with this as soon as possible.
Totally agree.
That guy,
That's one of the nicest things anybody's ever called me.
That was the other guy. That was
page 71, ordinance number 97.
Okay.
If you're looking at it, let me know when you're reading it.
Mine pages aren't numbered, so you have to tell me
97.
which section.
Okay. Hit me.
An ordinance regulating the sale of Edidol.
And what's your point?
It sounds like
No spell
somebody's
check, huh?
already been,
Completely inappropriate.
I didn't finish my sentence now, did I?
I can make that edit, Mr. McHugh.
Thank you.
That, you read this whole thing and that's all you found?
Where'd we misspell it? I mean, where's it now again?
Top,
It says Edidol instead of
right under
edible.
ordinance number 97.
Oh, well,
He's right.
so we're clear, that's probably my fault.
Oh,
I think I'm the one that's.
Taking it for the team, Chad.
Well, hey, if it's my fault, it's my fault.
No spell.
That's right. You had to review this.
I think I wrote it, didn't I?
I wrote it.
You wrote it, okay, well. Yeah, I had to
All right, you
review it.
both, you both messed
but
up.
a serious
We both
question.
screwed it up.
Still screwed it up, yeah.
A serious question, though, is this kind of then really this is edible cannabinoids. Is it kind of following the same layout, commentary, wording for cannabis?
No.
No, that's going to be different.
Yep.
Okay, because there's three things we have to be aware of, right? Cannabis, cannabinoid, and cannabinoil?
Yeah.
That's right.
Are they all going to are they all different?
The regulation's going to end up being the same, but they are three different approaches to.
Yeah.
So they're worded differently? as well?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Because the 2022 statute deals only with cannabinoid products.
And so this also regulates drinks that have THC in it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, definitions and purpose and intent and license required and basis for denial and there's still going to be slightly different for each one?
Yeah, those we'll have to adjust the language of each of those three specifically to this language. But the regulation is going to be the same.
Yeah. Which one did I do? Was it cannabis? Okay.
All right, so am I back to my same question? Can they sell out of a home? Or do we want to amend this so that it specifies they can't?
I would say, to be honest with you, I'd be concerned about that point.
Well, can we put it in this?
Sure you can.
Okay, so then do we have to repost this?
I don't think so, because you're only posting that you're considering the ordinance. Okay. You're still allowed to, you can make amendments tonight, that's not a problem.
So the amendment should specify will not be allowed for home sale.
Yeah, we should probably find the right space for it.
Okay.
Well, place of business, 3-7?
Well, 3-7.
Yep, place of business, no license shall be issued to a movable place of business. Only fixed location businesses shall be eligible with the exception of.
Well, it's right here. Home occupation pursuant to Town Ordinance 35 section is already in there, shall not be eligible for a license.
Oh,
It was there. You're
You didn't even
Maybe
know
this
it.
was the one you did.
Oh.
Because I don't remember writing it.
These
Anyway.
things float, yeah.
It's like
Oh, it's in there.
It is in there, yeah.
Good job, guys.
Well, then never mind.
Way to
I was
go.
all worried about nothing.
It's our job.
I know.
All right.
No, no,
What were you worried about
it's an
for
important concern.
I want to just get the public's opinion here. We haven't got there yet. I know. I've had no
You got
questions.
All right, no questions of the board. Motion to open up for public comment.
I'll move to open up public hearing.
Second.
Comment.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Come on, Whitber Press must have something to do with this.
She's not the press.
Not?
No, she's the intern.
Oh, that's right. Never mind. I was thinking.
Evan has help.
All right, hearing none, move to, I need a motion to close.
I'll move to close the public portion of the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll move to adopt the new ordinance regulating the sale of edible cannabinoid products, ordinance number 97 changes.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Number 8, new business, we have none. No added agenda items. Open time, there is no one here. I need a motion to receive agenda materials and supplements.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, and I need a motion to adjourn at 8:52.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.